Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this year's UMBC Graduate School Commencement exercises. The ceremony will begin in just a few minutes. First, a few housekeeping notes. We would like you to take a moment to note the emergency exits throughout the building. Pay particular attention to the ones nearest to you in case of an emergency. Also, emergency medical services are located upstairs on the track level of the arena near the entrance. Parents, for safety reasons, please do not allow children to climb on the railings. During the ceremony, please do not leave your seats to take photographs or videos. Aisles must remain clear at all times, and guests are not allowed on the main floor. Finally, out of courtesy to our graduates and guests, we ask that you please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices and remain in the arena until the end of the ceremony. Now, please turn your attention to the far end of the arena where the commencement procession will enter. The Graduate School is led by the Graduate School Marshal, Dr. Robert DeLuty, Associate Dean of the Graduate School, and Mr. Damon Bradley, who is receiving his PhD in electrical engineering today. He is carrying the Graduate School banner. The procession of graduate students is led by the Students' Marshal, Dr. Maniel Suri, the 2013 Presidential Teaching Professor and Professor of Mathematics and Statistics. Faculty and staff procession is led by the Faculty Marshal, Dr. Timothy Finan, the 2012 Presidential Research Professor and Professor of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering. He is joined by Staff Marshal, Dr. Constance Pearson, the 2011 recipient of the Presidential Distinguished Staff Award for Professional Staff, and Director of Institutional Research. The faculty, staff, and students marshals are carrying batons that the UMBC Alumni Association gave to the university in honor of our 40th anniversary in 2006. The platform party is led by the Grand Marshal, Dr. Kathleen Carroll, President of the Faculty Senate and Associate Professor of Economics. The Grand Marshal carries the University Mace, a symbol of presidential authority. Used only on formal academic occasions, it is carried in the procession immediately before the President. UMBC's Mace was commissioned by the Alumni Association for UMBC's 20th anniversary in 1986.
Welcome. The 62nd commencement exercises of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Graduate School are now in order. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our national anthem. Sung by Ms. Alessandra Cantalupo, a sophomore who is the linguistics major in French and Russian. Ms. Cantalupo has been classically trained in voice and is honored to represent the music department. Gentlemen, please remove your hats or caps during the anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. When the rockets would go, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and home of the brave. Thank you, Alessandra. That was just beautiful.
Very nice.
Now I ask that everyone please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Vice Provost and Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Janet Rutledge. Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
President Rabowski, distinguished guests, and students and faculty. Today, we gather in a time-honored tradition shared across the world in saluting the attainment of the standards of advanced graduate study. This ceremonial tradition of the conferral of master's and doctoral degrees is one that provides a universal currency, signifying the highest standard of achievement in the disciplines, subjects, professions sponsored by UMBC. This is one of life's happiest and most significant milestones for each of today's graduates. It is a milestone not only for those earning degrees, but for all of us here today. For the graduates seated in front of me, it signifies the completion of your master's or doctoral degree and the acceptance of new and more challenging horizons. For the faculty and staff, the event serves as a capstone for all they have shared with you and brings special joy at seeing your personal success. And for the many families and friends here today, it is a moment in which we can all share, acknowledging recognition that you, our soon-to-be graduates, so richly deserve. For me and many others, it is a special moment during which we can witness the fruits of the many labors of our community and take pride in the remarkable work that takes place here at UMBC. During the ceremony, those of you receiving degrees will transition from being students to being alumni. Whether you go into careers as educators, scholars, artists, scientists, activists, service professionals, or engineers, you represent the best of the future. You have embarked on one of the most important journeys of your lives, that of earning a degree in your respective field, profession, or discipline, and we are all very proud of you. The degree earned from UMBC reflects significant achievement, often involving substantial personal sacrifice and struggle. For the pursuit of new knowledge and understanding involves growth and change. As we pay tribute to you today, we recognize, too, those who have supported you during your studies at UMBC. We know how much support your families and friends have provided throughout the experience. We come together also to acknowledge the faculty and staff who have encouraged, mentored, and helped you achieve your very best at UMBC. By honoring you, our graduates, we pay tribute to their artful craft of leading you to this day. Please give all of those who have supported you during these important years a round of applause. Although today celebrates the culmination of your diligence and hard work, it is also the commencement of the next phase of your lives and careers. Conferral of your degree does not symbolize the end of knowledge gained, but the seeking of knowledge yet unknown. So as you go forth on the pathway of your life, remember the words of Theodore Isaac Rubin, who said, "Happiness does not come from doing easy work, but from the afterglow of satisfaction that comes after the achievement of a difficult task that demanded our best." Congratulations from all of us. We wish you a life full of satisfaction and happiness. Before we move into the program for today, let me first briefly acknowledge some of the people joining us on the platform. Joining us are the deans of our colleges and schools, members of the President's Council, presidents of the campus senates, and presidential award recipients. I would also like to recognize someone who has been part of every graduate school commencement since 1997. Miss Linda Thomas is affectionately called the Graduate School Lady by students who have known her as the person who had to clear them for graduation. Linda is retiring in June after 42 years of service to the state of Maryland, including 25 at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. So Linda, wherever you are, please stand and come forward while we recognize your dedication to our students for so many years. It is now my pleasure to introduce Regent Louise Michaud Gonzalez, a member of the University System of Maryland Board of Regents. Regent Gonzalez will deliver greetings on behalf of the Regents.
Good morning.
Morning.
President Rabansky, Dr. Perman, distinguished deans and faculty, administrators and staff, students and graduates, proud families and distinguished guests. This morning, I am delighted to join you and extend the best wishes of the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland on this wonderful day. It's an honor to share this occasion with President Freeman Hrabowski, who has done such a remarkable job of leading UMBC to new heights of excellence and national acclaim. Of course, he has not done that alone. Credit also goes to your outstanding faculty, administrators, staff, and as Freeman tells us at every Board of Regents meeting and everywhere else that he sees us, his students, which he claims are the best in the entire system. And perhaps, well, no, I can't say that because Dr. Perman's here. They are among the best. You can feel the energy, the motivation to excel, and the pride on this campus. By any measure, national rankings, research partnerships, public service activities, faculty accomplishments, and student academic achievements, and not even counting the number of awards your president has won, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County is one of the finest universities in the country. I'm also pleased to share this day with your keynote speaker, Dr. Jay Perman, who is president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and I'm looking forward to his remarks. But most importantly, it is an honor to be here to recognize you and congratulate you, the graduate degree candidates. What you have accomplished has taken hard work, persistence, and dedication. Congratulations to each of you. I also want to congratulate those who helped you get to this point. In addition to your deans and faculty and the folks at UMBC, I'm talking more now about the folks that are on the side of you here. Your parents and spouses or significant others, children, perhaps even grandchildren, grandmothers, other relatives and friends, all who have suffered through with you, frankly, occasionally put up with you, and encouraged you. I know they take great pride in what you have accomplished, and they're happy for you. So I say thank you to them, and congratulations to them also. Today, when you receive the doctoral or master's degrees from the university, it will be from the university recognized for excellence. No matter what direction your life takes now, no matter what challenges you will next confront, know that your education has prepared you well, and we wish you well. So on behalf of the University System of Maryland and the Board of Regents, congratulations again to each of you, and thank you for allowing me to share this day with you.
Thank you, Regent Gonzalez, for your remarks and for all of the support of the University System of Maryland. Now, I would like to introduce Ms. Doa Rashed, President of the Graduate Student Association and a PhD candidate in Language Literacy and Culture. Doa.
Good morning, President Hrabowski, Dr. Perman, Regent Gonzalez, deans, faculty, families, and friends. Oh, and the graduates too. I didn't forget you. I have you written here, first paragraph. But it's just a large group gathered here today, and they all came for you. From across the street or across the oceans, we all came to make this day a beautiful memory in your life, to show how proud we are in your achievement, your persistence, and hard work. Your graduation brings joy to everyone here. Your mentors and advisors who walked with you through your journey of intellectual inquiry. Your parents and families, friends and loved ones who encouraged you, who in the journey felt long and exhausting. So keep it in your heart. These memories you shared were the people who loved and stood by you and assured you that you can do it. Because those are the ones who really matter in life, who deserve your gratitude. They have and will always believe in you. Please give them all a round of applause. A graduation ceremony is always such a special occasion. The culmination of years of hard work, the actualization of goals attained, and the acknowledgement of the successes achieved. So it is only fitting that today you celebrate the road that you have all traveled those last few years, some longer than others. Now you are ending a journey that you started with tentative steps perhaps, but one that you have taken to remarkable heights. You have overcome challenges and difficulties along the way, and you are stronger because you finished what you started. You experienced exceptional moments and created memories that will fondly be remembered in the years ahead. Moments that you choose to use as stepping stones as you pursued your academic and professional goals. Every term paper, class project, publication, and a conversation with your mentor, and of course your thesis and dissertation, all are milestones in your journey. And it is today that you celebrate the end of one journey and the start of another. UMBC gave you the opportunity to learn new skills, gain valuable knowledge, challenge yourselves, and explore new horizons in the process. Now is your turn to make sure that the world gets the best that you have to offer. Your journey is a proof that dedication and hard work and faith in yourself are the keys to achieving goals. Knowing that you can do it and that you can be the person you have always wanted and strive to be is what made your success real. You own your success. You are here today by the will to win, the desire to succeed, and the urge to reach your potential. This is how you unlocked the doors to academic and professional success. To this point, I would like to remind you of what Albert Einstein said. Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. You have reached a milestone in a successful life journey, and that comes with a responsibility toward the communities we live in, the world we share, and the degrees you are about to receive. This is the time to find your true call and inspiration. Be this in a kindergarten or a biology lab. The kindergarten is more fun, at least that's what I think. There is always an opportunity to make a difference. And remember, those opportunities don't just happen, you create them. Today is crowned by your diplomas, but only measured by the challenges you are yet to overcome. Your success today is delineated and defined by the values you carry in your heart. May you always lead by example. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dora, for your inspiring words and for the collaborative support of the Graduate Student Association. Will the GSA Executive Board members please stand and be recognized for all that you do to support graduate students at UMBC? And now I am pleased to introduce UMBC's Provost and Senior Vice President, Dr. Philip Rouse, who serves as our Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Rouse joined UMBC in 1990. He is a professor in our Department of Physics and has also served as the Dean of the College of Natural and Mathematical Sciences. Dr. Rouse?
Good morning. On behalf of the scholarly community we call our UMBC, I extend my congratulations to our graduates. Enjoy and savor this quiet moment. We had very high expectations when we welcomed you as a member of the UMBC community. Those expectations were based upon your promise as scholars. Today, we celebrate your fulfillment of that promise. You will join the tradition of UMBC alumni who, through their life's work, continue to advance our understanding of our own humanity, our democracy, the natural world that surrounds us, and most importantly, make a difference in the lives of others. Your diploma represents not just your academic achievement, but the friendships you have formed, the faculty that have nurtured you, and the family and friends who supported you and helped you arrive here today. I hope you will see your achievement as emerging from within the context of a community that knows you and cares about you, including our outstanding faculty and staff. On your behalf, I would like to thank them for everything they have done to support your success. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize Dean Warren DeVries, who will return to the faculty after 8 years of outstanding service to UMBC and the College of Engineering and Information Technology. We are all grateful for his diligent stewardship, his support of our academic mission, and the difference he has made in the lives of our students, faculty, and staff. Dean DeVries, would you please stand and be recognized? Graduates, today as you cross the commencement stage, you will step across both a symbolic and an actual threshold to enter into the next phase of your personal and professional journey. Like so many transitions in life, this may feel like a step from what is known to what is unknown. But be confident that you will be supported by the solid foundation built upon the preparation you have received here at UMBC. As your provost, I hope you will allow me to ask each of you one final question. And the question is, what principles and values will guide you throughout your professional and personal lives? This is an intensely personal question, and the answer does not come easily or in just a simple moment. It is, in fact, a question that requires a lifetime to answer. But it is my greatest hope that your experience as a member of our community will have provided you with the opportunity to reflect upon the many values we share together. Values such as excellence, commitment, hard work, inclusiveness, and a respect for the dignity of others. And perhaps the most important of these is integrity, which means putting your values into action. This is not easy or simple, but in the words of President Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. And so may you enjoy a life rich in the knowledge that each day your work and your relationships have truly made a difference. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Rouse. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, President of UMBC. Serving for more than 20 years as President, Dr. Hrabowski has brought tremendous energy, vision, and leadership to this institution. He has helped connect the university with individuals, companies, foundations, and agencies that have brought new resources to build and sustain distinctive programs in undergraduate education and graduate education and research. Dr. Hrabowski.
Thank you, Dr. Rutledge. Good morning. Good morning again. Graduates, It is interesting that when you think back on this day, of course, you will remember different people getting up to talk, and you hear sentence there, you hear sentence there, and you all the while you're thinking, I'm ready to get that diploma somehow, ready to get on with my life. I want you to take just a moment and savor this experience. Because we say it, and yet I'm not sure it comes through as clearly as it should. This really is your day. This is the day that you've been waiting for a long time. As I walked in, I said to some of you, this is really a dream. You're actually still back in undergrad school somewhere, just to give you perspective. But I tell you that because it is a special day where you've got people who care about you all around. And so I want you to think again, you've heard others say it, but the older I get, the more I realize there is nothing in our lives more important than our family members and our friends. And so give your family members and friends a hand and think about all that they've done to give you so much support. And then I want you once more to recognize your faculty and staff, because I want you to remember they are here forever for you. That we will always be connected. This is not about you having taken a class and now you're going on. You want to stay in contact with your professors and staff members. Give them a hand for caring about you and bringing you into the professions. Some of today's graduates are members of our own staff, and I want to recognize them. If you are a staff member graduating today, please stand. I was told there are some staff members who are graduating. Give them a hand wherever they are. All the staff members, yes. Excellent, excellent. I'd also like to recognize those students who are graduating today who are either veterans or members of the military. Please stand so we can thank you for your service and honor your achievement. To all of them, very nice. Some of our graduates are currently teaching or will be teaching in public schools throughout Maryland and the country. If you're going to be a teacher or you're already teaching, please stand. Let me see where you are. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Now I want to take a few minutes and just honor a few of our graduates who reflect all the values and all of what you represent. My first person, our first graduate that I'm recognizing, receives her Master's in Applied Sociology today. She is a Shriver Peace Worker Fellow who served with the Peace Corps in Peru as a reproductive health educator. She has been selected as a Presidential Management Fellow, a competitive 2-year fellowship that will place her among the top graduates in U.S. federal agencies. She has an interest in criminal justice and addressing social inequality. She is determined to fight human trafficking through her work with either the FBI or the State Department. Elise Ottenberg, would you please stand? We're very proud of you. Very nice. Our next graduate is completing a PhD in electrical engineering. He's focused on developing ways to deliver high-quality data to climate and weather scientists, data that would otherwise not be degraded by unwanted radio frequency interference. After graduation, he will continue working as the founder and group leader of the Digital Signal Processing Technology Group at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Damon Bradley, would you please stand? We're very proud of you. Our next student receives his PhD in computer science. He was a member of one of the first cohorts of Miles Scholars a number of years ago. He received his bachelor's in mechanical engineering and his master's in computer science at UMBC. He also has a master's in mechanical engineering from Stanford. His thesis centers on a method he developed to enhance the features of an image to improve the viewer's perception. His technique has proven to be particularly vital to the aerospace industry. He will continue this research in his current position as a systems engineer architect at Northrop Grumman. Chris Morris, we're so proud of you. Please stand, and I know your dad, Joel, is Professor Joel Morris is also. It's really nice. Really nice. Our next student receives her master's in instructional systems development today. Her focus is on e-learning, and she is working as a curriculum programmer for Lockheed Martin, designing online training for government agencies. Jessica, we've known you since you were a baby. Please stand. John Martell is very proud of you and all of us. Jessica, wherever you are. Jessica. Our next graduate receives her PhD in Human Services Psychology and also has a bachelor's in psychology from UMBC. Her dissertation research focused on an intervention with adults with intellectual disability and post-traumatic stress disorder, using eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. All study participants showed marked improvement in measures of psychological, emotional, and physiological functioning and lost their previous diagnosis of PTSD. She plans to continue her work with people with severe mental illness in both intellectually disabled and general populations. She will be in private practice in downtown Baltimore. Lynn Bueller, please stand. We're very proud of you. Lynn Bueller. Very nice. Very nice. Our next graduate receives her PhD in electrical engineering today. Her dissertation research on imaging processing can help identify patients with schizophrenia with 98% accuracy using only brain scans. Last week, she traveled to Florence, Italy, presenting her work at the premier international conference in her field with her mentor, Dr. Tulay Adalai. Somebody had to go to Italy, of course. Her visa did not arrive in time for her to return to this commencement. She is watching us by webcast. I'm going to ask the audience all to wave your hands at Ray Do. Wave your hands at Ray Do. And now let's give her a round of applause. I think some of the graduates would like to be over there in Florence, Italy with her, though. So Ray, enjoy yourself. Our next graduate receives her PhD in Language, Literacy, and Culture today. She is the former academic director of UMBC's English Language Institute and worked as an instructor in the TESOL MA program at American University. She also has been an English language specialist for the State Department. She has accepted a tenure-track position at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse and will continue to work with the U.S. State Department. She also serves on the team to revise standards for the preparation of English language teachers in America. Heather Linville Stan, we're so proud of you. Our next graduate is receiving his master's in management of aging services today. He was the executive director of North Bay, a camp on the eastern shore of Maryland that works with inner city youth. And he came to UMBC's Erickson School to change his professional focus. He has now accepted the position of associate executive director at Ann's Choice, a continuing care retirement community in Philadelphia. George Comfort, we're proud of you. Please stand. George. Our next graduate is receiving her MFA in Imaging and Digital Arts. She is a Shriver Peace Worker Fellow who served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala. Her art often focuses on food justice. She launched the Pigtown Food for Thought project in a Baltimore neighborhood identified as a local food desert. This inspired a full plate, an art installation called A Full Plate. It's composed of painted dinner plates created by more than 300 Pigtown residents as a way of exploring food issues and expressing their personal food stories. This work is on view this semester at UMBC's Center for Art, Design, and Visual Culture. She's already a finalist for the competitive Fulbright National Geographic Digital Storytelling Fellowship, and if chosen, will spend the next year working in Mexico City. Charlotte Sarah Kenniston, please rise and let us applaud you. Our next graduate will receive a master's in geography and environmental systems and also graduated with a bachelor's from UMBC in environmental science. While a grad student, he worked at the U.S. Geological Survey as a hydraulic technician on campus. His master's thesis was funded by a grant from the Maryland Water Resources Research Center, and his research results will inform the ongoing work of the Chesapeake Bay program. Already, he has presented his research to the EPA, Chesapeake Bay Scientific and Technical Advisory Committee. He recently received the Fulbright to conduct research at the University of Turku, and it will be focused on addressing or assessing the impact of agriculture on erosion and water quality in southwest Finland. Somebody's got to do it, right? He will pursue a PhD when he comes back in watershed sciences at Utah State University. Mitchell Donovan, we are so proud of you. Please stand, one of our former swimmers. Very proud of you. Very proud of you. And finally, I want to mention a student receiving a PhD in statistics who is not able to be here today, but his achievement is so prestigious that he deserves special recognition. Justin Jacobs has received the very prestigious Presidential Early Career Award in Science and Engineering, called PCASE, for his work in geo-navigation algorithms and modeling development. Now, there will be a test on this after this paper, all right? He is the first member of the intelligence community of America to win this award. He will be continuing his work with the Department of Defense. We are very proud of you. Please give Justin Jacobs a round of applause. All of you are going to do great things, and we look forward to continuing to be a part of who you are and what you do. But today, just savor this moment. Thank you all very much.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. Jay Perman, President of the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Dr. Perman received his Doctor of Medicine degree with distinction from Northwestern University, following his residency in pediatrics at Northwestern University's Children's Memorial Hospital. He completed a fellowship in pediatric gastroenterology at Harvard Medical School and at the Children's Hospital Medical Center in Boston. Since his tenure as UMBC president, he quickly made a huge impact by stressing civility, interprofessional research and education, and outreach to the community. He continues to practice medicine through his weekly President's Clinic, where he teaches team-based care to students of medicine, pharmacy, nursing, dentistry, social work, and law, while treating pediatric patients. Dr. Perman has been listed among the best doctors in America since 2001. His long and distinguished career includes service through many national, state, and local organizations, boards, and committees. He also currently serves as chairman of the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore and is a member of the board of directors for the Greater Baltimore Committee and the Hippodrome Foundation. We are very proud to have Dr. Perman with us today. Dr. Perman.
Good morning, everyone. President Rabowski, Provost Rouse, Regent Gonzalez, deans, vice presidents, distinguished faculty and staff, family and friends, and most especially graduates. I am honored and grateful for the opportunity to address you on your day of commencement, this celebration of accomplishment and contemplation of all that lies ahead for you. Graduates, as the President pointed out by using examples, you have achieved, and for that you are certainly to be congratulated. This is your day to celebrate your hard work and your perseverance over many years. Now, I do not intend to be long-winded in coming between you and your celebrations, so please hold me to that. But I did come to talk to you about two things: the importance of partnerships and the importance of being nice. First, partnerships, the appreciation of others. Each and every one of you, I am sure, would readily acknowledge the help you had along the way, from institutions, from mentors, and certainly family and friends. As Regent Gonzalez, President Hrabowski, Provost Rouse have pointed out, you understand the importance of these people as supporters, frankly, as partners. How crucial it is that we learn to value partnership, collaboration, team. Yes, today you join the ranks of our educators, our engineers, our cybersecurity experts, our scholars, our scientists, our business and civic leaders. Make sure that as you go forward, you keep in mind words attributable to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We go farther, faster, when we go together. To see the power of collaboration, you need look no further than the example of this institution, your institution, so ably led by President Hrabowski, that has prepared you so well for your road ahead. This university, its faculty, its students, this university has long-standing, noteworthy, and even expanding partnerships with my institution, the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Together, we have enjoyed a highly productive partnership. In fact, here we are celebrating the graduate school commencement, and we have in fact a joint graduate school, which we created together in 1985. We interact in so many areas: psychiatry and mental health, biomedical research, gerontology, health informatics, cybersecurity, social work, marine and environmental science, and many others. These are just a few examples of our many ongoing institutional collaborations, and we are building on them. And what do we get out of it? What do we collectively get out of it? We enrich the experience of our students, and we enhance the impact of our scholarship and research. Now that's collaboration among organizations. How do we team up as professionals? Let me tell you for a moment what's going on in healthcare. Provost Rouse mentioned what I do on Tuesday afternoons when I gather students from each of our professional schools and we see patients together. Why? Because we understand that healthcare is changing. And if we are going to properly address the needs of our senior citizens, the needs of our increasing population of people with chronic diseases, it is no longer enough for a physician like me or a nurse practitioner to make the correct diagnosis and write the proper prescription. That is too often half a loaf. And you have not fulfilled your responsibility to the patient, we have come to appreciate, without understanding the environment in which they live, without understanding physician and nurse practitioner aside, that it is often important to have a pharmacist to explain how to take the medication correctly. It is too often necessary for a social worker to pay attention to the patient's environment. It's very nice to be able to say that medication needs to go into the refrigerator, but some people have their electric shut off. You need the social worker, and you need the lawyer on a healthcare team. When there are issues of landlords in which the patient lives, where ordinances and codes are not respected. You see, it takes a team. And that's what I want to stress to you for your own work. It takes a team. You know, the author Robert Fulghum captured the important lessons of collaborations in his 1988 book entitled, and some of you may remember this, All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Recall his admonishment, and I'm quoting, "It is still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it is best to hold hands and stick together." And speaking of kindergarten, there are surely those in the room who, like me, are old enough to remember this. We have really been measured since we were small children on our ability to collaborate. Think about it. Remember in kindergarten, or for those of us who think kindergarten was too long ago to remember when your children were in kindergarten, do you recall the little box on the report card that was checked with a satisfactory, or God forbid, unsatisfactory, for playing well with others? I urge you, graduates, to realize the importance of, at minimum, a satisfactory grade on interacting well with others in today's workplace. I urge you to realize how important it is in adult terms, yes, to reject selfishness and purely personal agendas in favor of strong partnerships with those who will become your colleagues. I can tell you, I can promise you, that you will be evaluated for a job and in a job, in no small measure by whether you are judged to be a team player. Achieving effective collaborative relationships requires recognition of the importance of taking the other person's position into account. We need the ability to listen better, to listen, as a mentor once explained to me, to listen with energy to the other person. As Malcolm Forbes put it, and I quote, "People who matter are most aware that everyone else matters too." Understanding what the other person needs out of a relationship, and when necessary, yes, giving a little, that's understanding collaboration. And by the way, I'm not talking about being weak. Effective partnerships, frankly, are not for the weak. Highly functioning collaboration, that's for self-confident folks, which I know you are. Now, the second point. Teamwork is fostered, believe me, by being nice. Now, I know I just used a mushy, soft, four-letter word. Not the stuff of presidents and academics. Some of you may prefer civility, professionalism, but let's talk plainly. Be nice. Your interactions with colleagues and clients will be most effective if you insist on professional, ethical, respectful, and courteous behavior in yourself and from those with whom you engage. Being nice, like being collaborative, is anything but weak. It is powerful. You know, that much admired baseball player and manager Leo DeRocher, he was dead wrong when he said nice guys finish last. Nice guys and gals finish first. I learned this early in my career, and a brief story, if you will. My first faculty job was at a prestigious institution on the West Coast, where I was fortunate, like you are fortunate, to have a great mentor. A mentor who, in my role as a young assistant professor, taught me how to write, taught me how to put together grants, taught me how to make a scientific presentation, and he also taught me what not to do. Not deliberately, but I watched, because he was abrasive and rough and inappropriately demanding. And this came home to me when I became increasingly frustrated by the fact that programs that I thought were critically important to the institution were not advancing. They were not being embraced. And I was fortunate in that my frustration garnered the attention of the dean of that distinguished medical school, who gave me a call one day. And he said to me, he said, you know, see if you can convince Mike to let you go and make the presentation of your proposal. I said, Dean, I appreciate that, but what's the difference? If the proposal has merit, it should stand on its own legs. To which he said, Jay, the same people that say no to Mike will say yes to you. I learned, and I would share that experience with you. No matter the merit of your proposal, of your ideas, you need to present it in the right way in order to get the yes answer. Try nice. Try civility. No matter what's your career path, what's your profession. You know, think for a moment about the legal world. So much of the practice of law is characterized by its very nature as adversarial proceedings. But one of the most thoughtful of lawyers, local Baltimorean Ron Shapiro, whose name some of you know, has championed the value of civility. He wrote, "The Power of Nice." The Power of Nice. The title says it all. And let me stay on the theme of lawyers for a moment. Consider this comment about civility by Jean Lafitte in a journal called The Bencher, the magazine of the Inns of Court. And I'm quoting him because it's instructive. "The lawyer, in earnest pursuit of civility, enhances his credibility with his adversary, his client, and the courts. Credibility is the key element in the art of persuasion, which in turn is key to a lawyer's success." He implored lawyers to present in a civil way. Ladies and gentlemen, if nice works in an occupation that by its very nature is adversarial, it cannot fail in other careers. It is easier to get people to embrace your position with polite arguments rather than confrontation. You surely have heard the expression, you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. If you are nice, you prevail. Graduates, I implore you to do excellent work in which you are happy and successful. Do it collaboratively, and above all, be nice. Congratulations and thank you.
Dr. J. Perlman, we appreciate your encouraging us to collaborate, and let me simply say, he's a really nice man. Give him another round of applause, will you? Graduates, all of you already know, it's much easier to work with somebody who's decent in their behavior. And it's such a profound message used with such clear and simple language. We are now to that part of the program where we will be conferring the PhD and master's degrees.
Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy please rise? Dr. Rabowski.
Dr. Rutledge.
Dr. Rabowski, I have the honor of presenting the candidates recommended by the faculty of the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore, for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, the highest earned degree which any university has the power to confer.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and by the authority of the state of Maryland, given to the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland and the Board of Regents, and by them entrusted to me, I hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, which you have earned during the course of your studies at the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore. In token whereof, you shall be given a diploma with all of the honors, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto pertaining.
Thank you. Please be seated. Today, all of our graduates will receive a special congratulatory memento from the UMBC Alumni Association. Mr. Kenneth Pittman, a member of the Alumni Association Board, will greet you and present this to you as you return to your seats. Now, will all the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy please proceed with their mentors to the platform to receive their diplomas. Please remain seated until your row has been escorted to the stage.
Great.
Heather Ann Linville, being hooded by her mentors, Dr. Beverly Bickle and Dr. Joanne Crandall. Dr. Linville's research investigates how teachers' advocacy for English language learners improves students' educational outcomes while challenging societal injustices that make advocacy necessary. Dr. Linville leaves her teaching position at American University to become assistant professor and director of TESOL at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in the fall. Jeremy Allen Trucker, whose mentors are Dr. Jennifer Maher and Dr. Joanne Crandall, being hooded by Dr. Crandall. Dr. Trucker's research identified several successful strategies for community college students. As an associate professor and honors director at the Community College of Baltimore County, Dr. Trucker has implemented these strategies and is also sharing nationally the importance of analyzing students' discursive constructions of their often challenging educational journeys. Samir El-Omari, being hooded by his mentors, Dr. Claudia Galindo and Dr. Ana Ascos. Dr. El-Omari investigated the impact of computer-assisted language learning and national standards for foreign language learning on the teaching and learning of Arabic in higher education. His findings showed positive impacts on the use of technology and standards on the teaching and learning of Arabic. Dr. El-Omari is currently a lecturer of Arabic and French at UMBC. Thomas Andrew Peniston, being hooded by his mentors, Dr. Claudia Galindo and Dr. Joby Taylor. Dr. Peniston investigated the impacts of applied and service learning participation on undergraduate students. His mixed methods study found significant impacts on diverse indicators of academic success, including GPA and four-year graduation, as well as enhanced aspects of pro-social development. Dr. Peniston has accepted a position with UMBC's Division of Information Technology. Amy Lynn Puccino, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Claudia Galindo. Dr. Puccino explored the academic and socio-emotional advantages of caring relationships between refugee youth and their educators. Her mixed methods study suggests that such caring relationships were related to higher GPA,
educational attainment, self-esteem, and social capital. Dr. Puccino is an assistant professor of sociology at the Community College of Baltimore County. Autumn Marie Reed, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Edward Larkey. Dr. Reed used critical discourse analysis to demonstrate how the U.S. News coverage of a quote-unquote honor killing constructs sharp boundaries between majority members of the U.S. and Muslim, Middle Eastern, and South Asian minority communities. Dr. Reed is currently program coordinator in the Provost's office at UMBC while pursuing university faculty positions. Laura Marie Murner, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Andrew Miller. Dr. Murner explored the interdisciplinary nature of flood hazards to better understand how vulnerability has been constructed, perceived, and legitimized. Her research assessed biophysical characteristics with social impacts of flooding in southern West Virginia. Dr. Murner plans to publish her work as a book with the University of Kentucky Press. Laura Eva Rose, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Carissa Chia. Dr. Rose's dissertation utilized a multidimensional and multi-method approach to assess the relations between urban adolescent mothers' parenting cognitions and their parenting behaviors with their young children across structured and unstructured contexts. Dr. Rose will pursue an academic career in research and teaching. Monica Felicia Ramos, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Susan Sonnenschein. Dr. Ramos conducted interviews with Latina immigrant mothers of preschool children to understand how they supported their children's education and the motivators and barriers they encountered. She found that current measures of parental involvement do not capture their full range of involvement. Dr. Ramos will extend these studies at Child Trends, a national research center. Laura Ann Scaletti, being hooded by her mentors, Dr. Susan Sonnenschein and Dr. Maureen Black. Dr. Scaletti investigated the continuity of biobehavioral stress reactivity from birth through adolescence in prenatally drug-exposed children. Dr. Scaletti plans to extend her work by investigating child and parent factors that promote cognitive and emotional development and decrease vulnerability among children exposed to stress prenatally or early in life. Nicole Wims Brocado, being hooded by her mentors, Dr. Laura Stapleton and Dr. Stephen Pitts. Dr. Brocado used item response theory and confirmatory factor analysis statistical modeling to examine whether the effectiveness of self-report items that retrospectively assess children's mental health symptoms is associated with item structure or children's ages. Dr. Brocado will continue to work with children in a clinical postdoctoral position. Lynn Louise Bueller, whose mentors are Sigurdur Sigurdsson and Dr. Bernard Rabin, being hooded by Dr. Rabin. Dr. Bueller employed multiple measures to track progress and assess outcomes of adults with intellectual disability whom she treated for post-traumatic stress disorder using eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. Dr. Bueller will continue providing psychotherapy for persons with severe mental illness at the Park Avenue Group in Baltimore. Elizabeth Halstead Connors, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Jason Schiffman. Dr. Connors evaluated school mental health clinicians' knowledge, attitudes, and use of evidence-based psychotherapy practices in Baltimore City Public Schools. Dr. Connors will be joining the faculty at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, Department of Psychiatry, Division of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, as a research associate. Alyssa Jane Allen, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Sherry Waldstein. Dr. Allen used community-based data to determine how food insecurity relates to negative emotions, eating healthy, and cardiovascular disease risk. Jessica Meltzer-McNeely, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Sherry Waldstein. Dr. McNeely investigated racial differences in how stress, salt intake, and blood sugar interact to elevate blood pressure in urban residents. Dr. McNeely and Dr. Allen are transforming their research into action by co-founding a local nonprofit to grow the capacity of citizens to act locally and create a just and sustainable food system. Jill Elizabeth Scheibler, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Ann Brodsky. Dr. Scheibler used qualitative methods to examine how community-based arts organizations promote psychological sense of community and social change. Dr. Scheibler directs the nonprofit Make Studio program and is an evaluation researcher at Carson Research, both in Baltimore. She is also an adjunct instructor in the psychology department at UMBC. Jamie Lynn Green, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Nancy Miller. Dr. Green conducted the first U.S.-based examination of the effectiveness of ambulatory nursing care clinics in the management of older adults with diabetes mellitus. Some small but significant effects of nursing care clinics on participant outcomes were observed. Dr. Green is a regional nurse executive with the Kaiser Foundation Health Plan of the Mid-Atlantic States, Incorporated. Karen Lynn Gordis, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Dave Marcotte. Dr. Gordis used time series regression analysis to evaluate the effectiveness of legislative efforts around the country to limit rates of growth of adult obesity. Dr. Gordis will continue her research as an assistant professor at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Marianne Elizabeth Hamilton Lopez, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Dave Marcotte. Using multiple streams agenda-setting theory, Dr. Hamilton Lopez examined welfare discourse to analyze how specific factors, including the social construction of recipients and a recession, influenced the direction of welfare legislation. Dr. Hamilton Lopez will continue her work in health services research and policy as a senior manager at Academy Health. Kevin Joseph Hamlin, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. George Lanou. Dr. Hamlin used a mixed methods approach to examine the implementation of Maryland's Bridge Plan for Academic Validation Policy in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Dr. Hamlin will continue to serve as a principal in Anne Arundel County and share the results of his accountability research with education policy leaders. James Patrick Howard II, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Scott Farrow. Dr. Howard's research quantitatively analyzed the social and economic effects of the National Flood Insurance Program, a federal program insuring over $1 trillion of property nationwide. Dr. Howard works as a data scientist and consultant at Eagle Ray and teaches at the University of Baltimore and UMUC. Margaret Cecily Lynn, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Marina Adler. Dr. Lynn used a mixed methods design to evaluate Maryland's Jane Doe sexual assault reporting policy. Her research found important differences between sexual assault victims selecting Jane Doe reporting versus traditional police reporting. Dr. Lynn is an assistant professor at the University of Maryland School of Nursing. Evan Gordon Cameron, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Phyllis Robinson. Dr. Cameron discovered novel regulatory reactions that modulate the visual pigment melanopsin. Melanopsin is found in a small subset of retinal ganglion cells and is involved in non-image forming visual functions, including circadian, photoentrainment, pupillary light reflex, and sleep. Dr. Cameron will be pursuing his postdoctoral studies at UC San Diego School of Medicine. Rahela Tagiri, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Charles Biebrich. Dr. Tagiri's research focused on an enzyme called Aurora A that is overactive in many cancers. She discovered new proteins that are acted upon by Aurora A, providing new opportunities to develop cancer therapeutics. Dr. Tagiri is currently a postdoctoral scientist working on antibody engineering at Eli Lilly and Company. Sarah Catherine Zimmerman, whose mentor is Dr. Catherine Radke, and she's being hooded by Dr. Brian Cullum. Dr. Zimmerman synthesized a series of novel carbocyclic nucleosides and evaluated their potential as therapeutic agent. Dr. Zimmerman is a postdoctoral fellow at the Johns Hopkins University, where she studies drug development for the treatment of neurological disorders and cancer. David Jonathan Cornwell, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Samuel Lomonico. Dr. Cornwell constructed a new and innovative class of quantum algorithms called amplified quantum Fourier transform algorithms that can detect and extract hidden symmetric structures within number sequences. These algorithms can be used within communication signals and within large databases. Dr. Cornwell is the technical director of the CSTL Cryptographic and Security Testing Lab at Leidos. Deepak Nag Aliala, whose mentors are Dr. Junyoung Park and Dr. Anindya Roy, being hooded by Dr. Roy. Dr. Alia worked on multivariate time series with emphasis on high-dimensional mean testing. He applied his research to study the effects of confounding of experimental effects in resting state networks. Dr. Alia is currently working in metagenomics as a postdoctoral researcher at The Ohio State University. Andrew Martin Rain, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Nagaraj Nirchal. Dr. Rain proposed an extension of generalized linear models from traditional exponential family distributions to include finite mixture distributions with a link to the mean. His work has applications in a number of areas, including biological, epidemiological, and environmental studies. Dr. Rain will join the Census Bureau as a mathematical statistician. Malik Mboj, whose mentor is Dr. Thomas Matthew. He's being hooded by Dr. Do Hwan Park. Dr. Mboj investigated the computation of ellipsoidal tolerance regions, simultaneous tolerance intervals, and tolerance rectangles for some multivariate normal populations with applications in laboratory medicine. Dr. Mboj is a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics at Bowie State University. Zachary Zimmer, whose mentors are Dr. Thomas Matthew and Dr. Do Hwan Park, being hooded by Dr. Park. Dr. Zimmer investigated the computation of tolerance limits under some discrete models, zero-inflated models, and mixture models with applications in testing the ballistic resistance of personal body armor and in evaluating safety of nuclear power plants based on simulated data. Dr. Zimmer is a mathematical statistician at the Aberdeen Proving Ground Army Evaluation Center in Maryland. Paul Timothy Corbett, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Ivan Kramer. Dr. Corbett successfully applied physical models to questions in theoretical medicine, specifically schizophrenia and white matter lesions. Dr. Corbett is continuing his research as a postdoc in the Brain Imaging and Modeling section of the National Institute on Deafness and Other Communication Disorders of the National Institutes of Health. Wei Chen, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Yan Washi. Dr. Chen discovered that the statistical correlation of intensity fluctuation of thermal radiation could simulate the non-local, higher-order coherence behavior of entangled quantum systems. This discovery is fundamentally important and practically useful, especially to quantum computer research. Dr. Chen has received an offer to join the faculty at Jiao Tong University in China. Shanuk Dilip Aplekar, being hooded by his mentors, Dr. Govind Rao and Dr. Antonio Moreira. In his research, Dr. Ablekar investigated the changes that occur in the cell culture environment during bioreactor scale-down that are significant enough to impact critical biopharmaceutical product attributes such as the product lidar and product quality. Dr. Ablekar works as a Process Development Scientist 1 at KBI Biopharma in North Carolina. Christopher Joel Morris, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Penny Reingans. Dr. Morris developed a framework for using non-photorealistic rendering techniques to enhance salient features in images generated from the fusion of multiple modes of data in a common scene. Dr. Morris continues to pursue this research and its application to sensor exploitation as an engineer systems architect at Northrop Grumman. Dana Taylor Wortman, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Penny Reingans. Dr. Wortman developed a technique to visualize sequential event performance patterns, enabling a stronger understanding of student enrollment and grade patterns to support early intervention initiatives. Dr. Wortman is a senior instructor of game design and development at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and plans to transition to a tenure track position. Joseph Adrian Rosebrock, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Tim Oates. Dr. Rosebrock developed a novel machine learning method that enables rapid deployment of accurate image classification systems, a task that previously required significant work by experts in machine vision and the image domain. Dr. Rosebrock plans to focus on his startup, ID My Pill, which helps patients identify their prescription pills in a snap of their smartphones. Damon C. Bradley, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Joel Morris. Dr. Bradley developed and compared real and complex valued statistical signal processing techniques using information theoretic test statistics for detecting and removing corrupting radio frequency interference received by spaceborne microwave radiometers. Dr. Bradley will continue leading the DSP Technology Group at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center and consulting part-time for Morgan State University. Shi-Yu Chen, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Chenny Chang. Dr. Chen developed a theory and further designed algorithms for finding targets of interest for various applications in hyperspectral data exploitation. Example applications include detecting anomalies in agricultural and environmental monitoring and specific targets for search and rescue. Dr. Chen will be an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Information Engineering at National Yulin University of Science and Technology, which is one of the top universities in Taiwan. Drew Paler, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Chenny Chang. Dr. Paler developed a novel signal processing approach to determine the number of different materials, such as soils, sands, and plants, present in hyperspectral remote sensing data. Application areas include geology, agriculture, and defense. Dr. Paler is currently working as a systems engineer at Northrop Grumman. Robert C. Schultz, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Chenny Chang. Dr. Schultz developed multiple algorithms for progressive band processing of hyperspectral images, which can potentially be implemented in satellite data communication and transmission in applications such as anomaly detection, subpixel detection, and finding end members. Dr. Schultz will be transitioning from the United States Navy to the civilian workforce, where he will conduct engineering research and development. Xiaojian Zhu, whose mentors are Dr. Arya Gangapadier and Dr. Jinhuan Feng, being hooded by Dr. Anita Kamladi. Dr. Zhu developed a data-driven model for quality control of crowdsourcing tasks to automatically assess the quality of a task without any manual intervention or using external data such as voting or gold standard data. Dr. Zhu is currently working as a software developer at Google. John Pierkowski, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Lena Zhao. Dr. Pierkowski developed novel trust models by extending organizational trust models and speech act theory to the explanation of trust relationships in online communities. He developed algorithms for the automatic discovery of trust relationships. Dr. Pierkowski is on the staff at the Applied Physics Laboratory at the Johns Hopkins University. Naveed Goodarzi, whose mentors are Dr. Wei Dong Zhu, and he is being hooded by Dr. Tim Topolesky. Dr. Goodarzi used a combination of analytical, numerical, and experimental methods to develop novel generators for wind turbines and hybrid vehicles, and novel ducted turbines for commercial and residential power generation. Dr. Goodarzi will further his studies as a postdoctoral researcher in the same field. Mobin Yayazadefar, whose mentor is Dr. Dwayne Arola, being hooded by Dr. Tim Topolesky. Dr. Yayazadefar investigated the importance of the microstructure of dental enamel on the resilience of the human tooth. Dr. Yayazadefar has accepted a position as a research fellow at the University of Washington to pursue further studies on the fracture behavior of materials of nature with Dr. Arola. Naveed Manuche Rabadi, being hooded by his mentor, Dr. Liang Zhu. Dr. Manuche Rabadi developed theoretical and experimental methods to evaluate gold nanorod thermal therapy and to assess treatment efficacy of the approach. The long-term goal of his research is to achieve individualized designs of treatment protocols for patients. Dr. Manuche Rabadi will be a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Minnesota. Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Fine Arts please rise? The MFA is the terminal degree in this field. Dr. Rabowski.
Dr. Rutledge.
Dr. Rabowski, I have the honor of presenting the candidates recommended by the faculty of the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore, for the degree of Master of Fine Arts.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and by the authority of the state of Maryland, given to the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland and the Board of Regents, and by them entrusted to me, I hereby admit you to the degree of Master of Fine Arts, which you have earned during the course of your studies at the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore. In token whereof, you shall be given a diploma with all of the honors, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto pertaining.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Fine Arts now please proceed with their mentors to the platform to receive their diplomas? Charlotte Sarah Keniston, being hooded by her mentor, Professor Timothy Noe. Dr. Keniston's work merges the concepts of art and social justice, engaging diverse participants in creative projects that deal with pressing issues such as food insecurity and homelessness. Charlotte is an applicant for both Fulbright and the Open Society Institute's Community Fellows Program. Ms. Keniston plans to teach socially engaged art at the university level. Beverly Shayna Palmer, being hooded by her mentor, Professor Frederick Warden. Ms. Palmer's artworks allow us to see the familiar world with fresh eyes. Her works feature rocks, water, sinks, landscapes, self-portraits. She asks us to attend to these objects as if for the first time. Ms. Palmer will be teaching at UMBC and continuing with her art making. Alexandra Shaw Maki, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Kathy Odell. Ms. Maki explores the representation of women in art history, subject-object power relationships, and the materiality of digital media through print, video, installation, and performance. Her practice is informed by improvisation, intervention, mirroring, and experimentation. Ms. Maki plans to continue making and exhibiting her work under the artist pseudonym Lexi Mountain. Dominique Zeltzman, being hooded by her mentor, Dr. Kathy Odell. Using video as an architectural intervention, Ms. Zeltzman explores concepts of objectification and power through the metaphor of the home as a socially constructed container with the paradoxical capacity to limit and liberate. Ms. Zeltzman plans to continue making and exhibiting her work as she seeks a tenure-track teaching position. Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts, Master of Public Policy, Master of Science, and Master in Professional Studies please rise? Dr. Rabowski.
Dr. Rutledge.
Dr. Rabowski, I now have the honor of presenting the candidates recommended by the faculty of the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore, for the degrees of Master of Arts, Master of Public Policy, Master of Science, and Masters in Professional Studies.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and by the authority of the state of Maryland given to the Board of Regents and the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland, and by them entrusted to me, I hereby admit you to the degree which you have earned during the course of your studies at the University of Maryland Graduate School, Baltimore. In token whereof, you shall be given a diploma with all of the honors, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto pertaining.
Thank you. Please be seated. Will the candidates for master's degrees now proceed to the platform to receive their diplomas? Please remain seated until your row has been escorted to the stage. Dr. Robert DeLuty, Associate Dean of the Graduate School, will read the names of the Master of Arts, Master of Public Policy, Master of Science, and Master in Professional Studies degree candidates.
Yep.
From the Erickson School, candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in the program of Management of Aging Services, Kim Belinda High. Catherine Deacon Shea. Michael Joseph Athan. Atif Jahangir. Margaret Ann Laporte. George Augustus Comfort. Liam David Paddock. Pamela Beth Silberman. Timothy David Scherer. Teresa Louise Ward. Haider Mahmood. In the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in the program of Economic Policy Analysis, Babatunde Ademuya Adedipe. Stephanie Ariel Oliver. In the Department of Education, in the program of Instructional Systems Development, Jacqueline M. Cade. Laura Elizabeth Fry. Joshua Todd Lubin. Jessica Marie Martello. Lynn Fusco Matthews. Michelle Nicole Knight. Candice Funmilolo Ayodele Bineyu. In the program of English for Speakers of Other Languages, Sean Victor Astrahan, Lori Jean Giblin, Ceylon Lee, Jose Lopez Rama. In the program of teaching, MAT, Ashley Marie Banks, Laura Todd Carnes, Caitlin Lee Corey, Revital Curtis, Samantha Jean Duval, Matthew Justin Elliott, Cynthia Joanne Garcia, Joshua Isidore Glazer, Elizabeth Clara Harrigan, Jessica Lee Holmes, Andrew Robert Keegan, Sean Ball Lehman, Gil Sandoval, Jennifer Marie Tanco. In the Department of History, in the program of Historical Studies, Christopher Brian Brown, Catherine Marie Dufresne, Jacob Alexander Hutton, Colin Peter Leach, Caitlin Elizabeth McGeever. In the Department of Modern Languages, Linguistics, and Intercultural Communication, in the program of Intercultural Communication, Sarah Joy Calderon, Sabina Francesca Foizor, Ruth Gomez Leola, Sarah Renee Holmquist, Minyang Lee, Veena Satish Namburdri. In the Department of Psychology, in the program of Human Services Psychology, Jason E. Kisser, Tahira Chloe Mahdi, Chandra Estelle Edwards, Megan Marie Gradon, Julia Ashley Zeroff, Julian Samuel Farzan Kashani. In the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, in the program of Applied Sociology, Lauren Ashley Hall, Samuel Jose Montodonedo, Jennifer Nicole Coto-Nias, Regina R. Muhammad, Sabrit Kar Kang, Yawasa Crystal Tingba, Alicia Rebecca Jeffrey, Sauda Clara Muhammad, Elise Julia Altenberg, Ross Andre Dion. In the Department of Public Policy, in the program of Public Policy, Laura Elizabeth Bruner, Emily Elizabeth Gildy, Shane Joseph McCormick, Emily Jean Sherman. Candidates for the degree of Master in Professional Studies in the program of Geographic Information Systems, Amrutha Dasharatharam Elamparuthi, Brian Michael Lee, Georgette Pauline Gecko, Tip Van Vo. In the program of Industrial Organizational Psychology, Melissa Catherine Wilson, Brittany Lightmaker Chaddock, Cassandra Therese Martinez, Alicia Marie Campiz, Jeffrey Keith Henderson, Benaya Sakpal, Alexander James Bruce, Kim M. Thomason, Tony Shanae Montgomery, Carolee Ellen Cosmides. In in the Department of Emergency Health Services. In the Program of Emergency Health Services, Erin Nicole Harris. Mahmoud Talal Alwidian. Jose Victor Nabel. Anthony Nicholas Cassio. Mitchell R. Donovan. Sierra Zaid Shamer. Nur Dorian Achiri Mofor. In the Program of Applied Molecular Biology, Leila Zara Bamani Kaziruni. Candice A. Craig. Melvin Jamil Ezel. Allison Christine Jakes. Pushya Pradeep. Dagmawi Saleshi Talahun. Joseph Bernard Vegling. Eastleen M. Ride. In the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, in the Program of Chemistry, Thomas Michael Gallagher. In the Department of Physics, in the Program of Physics, Kyle Arthur Cox. Candidates for the degree of Master in Professional Studies in the Program of Biotechnology, Amar Musa Jaber, Marie-Claude Zonli Lowe, Paris Janae Kuntz, Jonathan Kerwin Lawrence, Amanda Emily Moore, Ashley Elizabeth Ackerson, Kiara Wagner. In the College of Engineering and Information Technology, candidates for the degree of Master of Science in the Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering, in the Program of Computer Science, Timothy James Meyer. Sina Salehi. Kaustab Lahiri. Akshay Ape Peshve. Dabal Devendra Gandhi. Arnab Prabush Joshi. Snehal Survey. Yanini Vinay Fatali. Rukmini Makrash Krishnan. In the Program of Computer Engineering, Andrew James Keister. Urvish Rendra Patel. In the Program of Electrical Engineering, Yao Li. Neha Ravindra Chardishsai. In the Program of Systems Engineering, Holly Wells Bennett IV. James Christopher Cray. George Francis Rachis II. Louis Rice Witt III. In the Department of Engineering Management, Matthew Adrian Brockway. Lakshmi Siyama Dagirala. Curtis Edwin Rock. Tajuddin Iman Sabri. Zulfikar Ali Shah. Joseph Edward Wickless. Jamie Carol Yole. In the Department of Information Systems, in the Program of Human-Centered Computing, Nada Tariq Hamu. In the Program of Information Systems, Devesh Ramesh Panchwag. Brandon Michael Oberlander. Divine Donwi Awa. Ohud Saud Al-Khatani. Nojud Mohammed Alodadi. Mohammed Saad Alodadi. Abdul Rahman Saeed Afan. Yo Rong Chen, Vladimir Dmitrievich Zasipkin, Hui Zhu, Savita Moses, Justin Brian Stauffer, Laura Zinner Drummer, Jaitin K. Vaishnav, Umasankar Arumugam, Aditi Suhas Gupte, Shivani Samir Daria, Rashmi Deshpande, Chaitanya Swandhu, Nalini Ananth, Priyanka Shikar, Anitra Anam, Krithika Sundar Raj, Jagannath Ramesh, Samuel Tongambo, Kevin James Bryant, Ike Wachuku, Eric J. Corbett Jr., Adam George Halem, Mosla Udin Mahmood, Chris Gimire, Molek Giantanal Salabadia, Don Landro Kuntz Jr., Darwin Luke Mock, Karen C. Thomas, Shweta Shashank Dugare, Peter Louis Roca, Mark Christopher Glaros, Paul Nicholas Langer. In the College of Engineering and Information Technology, candidates for the degree of Master in Professional Studies in the program of Cybersecurity, Christopher Fiat Mai, Jeffrey Robin Dewberry, Stephanie Nicole Menakis, Naomi E. Luke, Jeff H. Felix, Tracy Ross, Elizabeth Acheng Ambija, Sierra Ann Shaw, Catherine A. Hobbins, Ebenezer Olufemi Thomas Jr., Ty Nelson,
We are almost there. I ask that you remain in your seats through the singing of the alma mater. First, let me acknowledge again Mr. Kenneth Pittman, who is Vice President of the Alumni Association. He's one of the more than 60,000 alumni worldwide. He graduated from UMBC in 1980 in economics, and he is Senior Vice President and Senior Wealth Advisor for PNC Financial. Would you give him a hand, Mr. Pittman? Graduates, I said to you earlier to savor the moment. It has been my tradition to quote the words of our first UMBC president, the late Dr. Alvin Kuhn, who spoke to the first graduating class in 1970, and he said these words: "If you bring to the future the same personal qualities and personal commitment that you've brought to this campus's students, good and important things will happen to each of you as well as to those around you, and the university will be proud to have played a part in your lives." And now let me leave you with my own thoughts. Be confident, knowing that the education you have received here gives you a solid foundation for the rest of your lives. Know that if you persevere, and we know you will reach your goals, though you are certain to be challenged and tested along the way. Remember that your dreams, and most important, your character, will determine who you will become. Your character will be reflected most clearly in the courage you possess and in the compassion you show for others. Be true to yourself and be true in your relationships, always reaching out to inspire and to elevate. Graduates, you are now officially alumni of UMBC. You will always be connected to us, and we will be connected to you. Remember, this is your home. You may now rise and applaud, and everybody get up and give them a big round of applause. At this time, would you remain standing, and please, no one move, but remain standing as we sing the alma mater. Remember, you never leave the room when the alma mater is being played. We always respect ourselves. So please, the singing of the alma mater. Again, congratulations to the graduates. Please, everyone, remain standing as we move away from the podium, and Dr. Kathleen Carroll will lead us in the recessional. Thank you all very much. Graduates, enjoy your families today, and don't forget to tell them how much you appreciate what they've done for you.
Will everyone please remain standing until the platform party, faculty, staff, and graduates have recessed. Families and friends are asked to meet the graduates outside the arena. Congratulations to you all.
happiness in you. Got some clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got and don't hold it back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. You got something happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. You got something happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, love is too high. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, I said, take it down. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, love is too high. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, I said, take it down. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, love is too high. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, I say, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hot air balloon up the ghost face. Yeah, like I don't care, baby, by the way. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. You got something happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. You got something happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got and don't hold it back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. You got something happy. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. You got something happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. You got something happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, love is too high. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, I said, take it down. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, love is too high. When deep down, can't run you. When deep down, I said, take it down.